Give me that car right now." That's how it started, screaming in my driveway, papers flapping in her hand. Neighbors peeking through blinds. And in that moment, I knew if she took one more step, she wasn't just harassing me, she was about to commit a federal crime against the wrong man. Because the SUV she was demanding wasn't mine in the ordinary sense, it was government property. And I wasn't just some contractor neighbor she could bully, I was a federal chief. She just didn't know it yet. I'm Larry Roberts, 50 years old, 25 years serving the federal government. I just moved into this quiet neighborhood outside Washington, D.C. 6 months earlier. Thought I was buying peace. Thought I was buying mornings with coffee on the porch, friendly nods from neighbors' short commutes. Instead, what I got was a front row seat to the unhinged mind of the HOA president, Teresa Evans. That morning she came charging into my driveway like she owned it. Late 40s sharp eyes that burned with something more than anger. It was desperation, grief, and delusion, all tangled together. She pointed straight at my SUV, shouting, "That's my compensation car. God sent it to replace Mark's vehicle." I nearly spilled my coffee. God, compensation. I thought it was some kind of prank, maybe even a neighbor's twisted idea of a welcome party. But no, Teresa was dead serious. And when you've worked federal service as long as I have, you know the look in someone's eyes when they've convinced themselves of something dangerous. "Ma'am, this is my work vehicle," I said calmly, careful not to escalate. "You don't have any authority here." But calm didn't matter. Her face turned crimson, her hands shook as she dialed 911, shouting to the dispatcher that I was blocking divine justice. Neighbors began drifting out Tom Riley across the street, former contractor type with too many cameras already recording. Mrs. Davis on her porch, that knowing smirk of a retired federal employee who recognized more than she said, and Maria clutching her purse like it was filled with secrets instead of receipts. Officer Parker arrived, a young cop with military posture, eager to prove himself. Teresa waved fake HOA documents in his face, claiming she had the right to seize my car. He looked baffled, flipping through the papers, telling her citizens couldn't commandeer vehicles. She just shouted louder, invoking God and HOA bylaws like they were one and the same. I handed Parker my cover paperwork contractor ID, nothing that revealed my federal position. It was legitimate, just incomplete. And so the first round ended with confusion. But it was only the beginning. Teresa didn't stop. She escalated. Within days, she was forging elaborate documents with HOA letterhead biblical quotes, legal jargon strung together like a bad soap opera script. She called it a divine compensation order. She started whispering to neighbors that my car was blood debt for her husband, Mark. And you know what? For a moment, I actually pitied her. Grief makes people believe wild things, but pity only goes so far. One night, she crossed the line. Tom's cameras caught her in my driveway at 3 a.m, spray painting. Blood debt across the side of my SUV in dripping red letters, puncturing my tires, smashing mirrors with a hammer, whispering to the air. "This is for you, Mark." She thought she was avenging her husband. What she didn't know was that she'd just committed $4,200 worth of federal property damage. Felony territory. When I saw my car the next morning, paint still wet, my stomach sank. Anger, yes, but also something heavier, because I knew what came next. Protocol required me to report it. Investigators would get involved. Teresa's world would implode. And for the first time I felt weak, useless. I remember staring at that dripping red paint and thinking, maybe I should just leave. Move again. Walk away. Let this neighborhood consume itself. Because no matter what I did, I'd be the villain in her story. But then Tom showed me what he'd found. Mark Evans, her supposedly dead husband, wasn't dead. He was alive, living under the name Marco Valdez in Mexico, sipping drinks paid for with stolen federal contract money. Teresa had been mourning a man who abandoned her, who conned her, who set her up to become the madwoman of the neighborhood. And I realized then I couldn't walk away, not when the truth was that ugly truth. It all came to a head on the day Teresa staged her property recovery ceremony. She promoted it on social media, invited neighbors, even set up cameras for a live stream. By the time it began, thousands were watching online and half the county had shown up to witness what they thought was either justice or madness. Teresa stood there in a black dress and pearls like she was at both a funeral and a coronation. She held a crowbar in one hand, fake legal documents in the other, and declared she was reclaiming her late husband's compensation car. I stood at my driveway pretending to wash the SUV, playing the role of a clueless contractor, while inside adrenaline hammered through my chest. Teresa's voice rang out. By the authority of the divine compensation order, I seize this vehicle in the name of justice. She jammed the crowbar into the doorframe, the chat on her live stream exploding with emojis and shouts. That was it. The line had been crossed. I stepped forward. Everyone needs to understand, I said, raising my voice so both the neighbors and her cameras could hear what you're witnessing right now are federal crimes. The crowd went silent. Teresa froze mid-swing. Then I pulled out my badge, my credentials holding them up to the cameras. I am Chief Larry Roberts, Federal Interior Department. You could feel the air crack as the truth hit. Teresa's eyes widened, her knees buckled. Her crowbar slipped and clattered against the pavement. The live stream chat went insane, tens of thousands of viewers realizing they weren't watching some petty HOA drama, but a woman committing felonies against a federal officer. Teresa stammered, "Federal Chief, no." Her world was crumbling in real time. And then Tom delivered the second blow. He raised his phone, shouting, "Teresa? Mark isn't dead. He's alive in Mexico. He faked his death. He's been living it up while you ruin your life for him." The sound that tore from her chest wasn't human. It was rage, betrayal, grief, all colliding into one horrific wail. "Mark is alive," she screamed. "I destroyed everything for him. He left me." Maria, trembling, finally broke too. "And Teresa, the $15,000 missing from the HOA fund, it's gone because of you. You stole from all of us." That was the end. Teresa collapsed onto the asphalt, sobbing, incoherent, muttering, "Mark alive. Federal Chief." Why, Parker, the officer, stepped forward, handcuffs in hand, but even he looked shaken, like he was cuffing a ghost of the woman who had once ruled this neighborhood. Neighbors stood frozen, caught between sympathy and horror, while thousands watched online as Teresa Evans, the HOA Karen, who believed she was chosen by God, was unmasked as a vandal, a fraud, and a victim of her own husband's con. And me, I just stood there, badge still in my hand, watching the woman who had tormented me unravel in front of the world. No satisfaction, no gloating, just a bitter taste of truth. Because the lesson in all this is simple. When grief mixes with power and delusion, people will destroy everything, including themselves, in the name of justice that never existed.